Welcome to this Wednesday Community Connections Chapel. I'm Corey Lovell, your intern minister here at All Souls, and I'm so grateful to spend this evening with you, whether you're here with us in person or online. I'm also pleased to be joined by our director of music, Rick Fortner, who always brings me right into that spot I need to be. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace.
Every woman in the world had her mind set on freedom. If every woman in the world dreamed a sweet dream of peace, if every woman of every nation, young and old, each generation, held her hands out in the name of love, there would be no more war. If every nation in the world set a true course for freedom, if every nation raised its children in a culture of peace, if all our sons and our daughters reached in friendship across the waters, refusing to be enemies, there would be no more war.
I'd like to share a reading today from My Quests for Hope and Meaning by Rosemary Radford Ruther, a lifelong Catholic and theologian, the mother of feminist liberation theology. She's absolutely one of my favorite writers on life and God and community that I've ever come across. I think it's important to hear a Catholic perspective on the issues of birth control and abortion that we don't generally get to hear. I had not thought of becoming a crusader on this subject. This changed in February 1963. I was in the Pomona Valley Hospital where my youngest daughter Mimi had just been born. In the bed next to me was a Mexican woman named Asuncion. She had just given birth to a 9th child who had been born with the umbilical cord wrapped around its neck. Her doctor came in several times, insisting that she had to start practicing birth control. She might die if she had another child. She wept that her husband and her priest would not allow this. She also revealed that she was living in a cold, crowded home and had to turn on the stove to warm it up, threatening the family's health with leaking gas. Listening to this drama unfold next to me, I became outraged. I realized that birth control was not my private issue. It was a public issue of deep injustice for millions of women, particularly poor, uneducated women. And after I departed from the hospital, I penned a brief article defending my choice of birth control as a Catholic. For me, abortion is not a morally neutral action. Rather, it is an unfortunate decision that seeks a lesser of evil in conflictive situations in which the woman has lost her first choice, to have a child or not to have one when she wants it and can raise it adequately, or when the child's or mother's health are imperiled. Abortion should be, to use President Clinton's phrase, legal, safe, and rare. Making abortion legal and safe goes along with trying to make it rare, by giving women access to support for birth control and decision-making in sexual relations so that women can reduce the incidence of unbearable pregnancies and so avoid having to face the question of abortion. The Catholic Church, in forbidding contraception and making abortion illegal, actually increases the likelihood of unwanted pregnancies and unsafe abortions. This is not a defense of life. Our offering today goes to Diverse Revolutionary UU Multicultural Ministries, or DRUM. DRUM is a Unitarian Universalist people of color ministry and anti-racist collective bringing lay and religious professionals together to overcome racism through resistance and transform Unitarian Universalism through our multicultural experiences. Details for online giving are in the chat. Please give generously to this incredibly important organization, and we now gratefully accept your offering. I deeply believe in the value of life, the affirmation of life, using my ministry to help people live their lives as fully and as deeply as possible. But I feel it's important that I share something with you all today that I've never spoken about publicly, and I'm called to share with you now. If the draft Supreme Court decision that was revealed yesterday to overturn Roe versus Wade and remove the constitutionally protected right to privacy and intimate choice for all Americans, in particular women, had come just 2 years earlier, I would not be standing here serving as your All Souls intern minister today. In October of 2020, just a couple of months before I interviewed with Reverend Marlon and Reverend Barbara for the intern ministry position, my girlfriend at the time and I discovered that she was pregnant. It was not planned, we were not ready. This was roughly 8 months into the global pandemic, so we had both been working intermittently, if at all, for much of the year. Living our lives from home, online, and honestly, like many people suddenly forced to live a restricted, antisocial life in the midst of a handful of national emergencies, indulging in drinks and the occasional recreational THC edible more often than we probably should have. I still had 1 more year of seminary to complete before I could engage in full-time ministry. She was in the process of applying to MFA programs in New York City, Berkeley, Charleston, Los Angeles. We were both completely unprepared, economically, health-wise, logistically, and to be completely forthright, emotionally, to have this baby. The decision was made together, and it was hard, despite knowing it was the right thing to do and the best thing to do, for not just us, but the potential life we'd created. And it was still hard. But what made it even harder was that we were residents of Missouri, where the one remaining Planned Parenthood who could help us facilitate the abortion we chose to have as responsible and consenting adults in partnership was forced by our conservative state legislature to require unnecessary and invasive examinations of any woman who sought their reproductive care. So my girlfriend, already a survivor of sexual assault, like so many women I know, would have to endure a state-sanctioned sexual assault in order to seek the medicinal abortion that she knew and I knew was necessary. Thankfully, we lived near enough to the Illinois border to seek care across state lines where this invasive policy was not in place. But when we drove the hour and 20 minutes to the next nearest Planned Parenthood, it was not an experience that was easy there either. We were nearly barricaded from entering the parking lot by one group of protesters, and once we safely found a parking spot inside the fenced lot, since pandemic restrictions were still in place and we had to sit in the car until such time as she was called in for her consultation and prescription, which meant we were sitting ducks, with protesters surrounding the fence on two sides of our car, filming us with their cell phones and yelling to us anti-abortion slogans and Bible verses. So there I was, a minister, a religious professional, sitting in my car next to the woman I loved, who was shaking with fury and anxiety. The two of us already in a tough spot emotionally, being antagonized by people who claim to have the life and the sacredness of life as their utmost goal. I deeply believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. I deeply respect the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And I try and conduct myself focused on justice, equity, and compassion in all human relations. But in that moment, I was about ready to lose it. I'd spent the last several months of my community ministry in countless church parking lots all over St. Louis, getting people COVID tests, boxes of food, registered to vote, holding hands of people terrified to have a swab put up their nose, or terrified of the test result that would follow, or terrified they'd not be able to feed their families that night. I'd seen firsthand how little regard for life and lives lived that the people who'd advocated for and created the restrictive legislation I was now subject to actually had for those of us who are born into this world. And I knew that it was not in spite of, but because of, my deep, abiding appreciation and affirmation of life that my partner and I were making this decision. Because we could not possibly be responsible parents or usher life into this world in a way in which it had even the slightest chance of health and well-being, given the circumstances we found ourselves in. But that didn't matter to the people on the other side of the fence. Didn't matter to the people in the Missouri State Legislature. It obviously doesn't matter to the conservative justices on the United States Supreme Court. Because, as Rosemary Radford Ruther, a Catholic theologian, reminds us, this is not a defense of life. It's tyranny. It's inhumanity. And it's brutal disregard for the inherent worth and dignity of every person. I also deeply believe in our fifth principle, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. The public support of bodily sovereignty and reproductive choice is, compared to how most divisive things, everything else is these days, overwhelming. And the research shows that the decisions forced on the American public at large by these handful of justices, mostly wealthy older white men, will disproportionately affect poor people and people of color. Two populaces whose democratic franchise has been consistently and exponentially imperiled every election cycle. The right of conscience and use of democratic process compels us as Unitarian Universalists to understand that this Supreme Court decision, draft though it may be, is minority rule against the democratic will of the people by a handful of religious fundamentalists. Nothing less than theocratic tyranny. The legal justifications being utilized to rob us of our reproductive rights also opens the door to rob the rights for queer people and interracial families. And there's no doubt in my mind that they will be used to that end. They want to force us to bear children in the name of affirming life, but what if that child grows up to be trans or gay? Their very existence will go unacknowledged. Their marriages will go unrecognized. Their health care will be severely restricted. Their choice of a career in the armed services or as athletes will be taken from them. What if that child is Black or Indigenous? They won't be allowed to learn or speak openly about their history in public schools. They won't have access to books about their cultural legacy in our public libraries. They won't be allowed to vote with the same efficiency and ease and value as their white peers. They'll be targeted for arrest, harassment, and prosecution, regardless of their professional or class status, for their entire lives. This is not a defense of life. I'm proud of the decision that my former partner and I made. I'm proud of the ministry I've been able to conduct as a result. The Masters of Divinity I received from Eden Theological Seminary, the Masters of Fine Arts that she'll receive from her dream school to which she was accepted and attends. I'm proud that I can stand in a pulpit in a church in Oklahoma and say, we had an abortion. We aren't ashamed of it. It was one of the most life-affirming decisions I've ever made. No matter what happens in the weeks, months, and years ahead, for all of you here and online, whoever hears this little service, whoever has been through anything even remotely like what I have, many of you have probably been through a whole heck of a lot harder. Know that I love you, I feel for you, I'm confident in you, I respect your decisions, I affirm your life, and whatever life you choose to bring into this world. I love you beyond belief. Please join us in singing hymn 131, Love Will Guide Us, found in your gray hymnals.
I'm going to change the music just a little bit, Corey, okay?
Lovely.
Okay. You can still look at hymn number 131 if you'd like. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. We can still definitely sing 131 together. It may just be a different version, because what he shared really deeply affected me. I know it affected you. And love will guide us as it did them. Let's really think about these words, though, and offer it in a slightly different way. And if you just want to listen and not sing, that's fine too. But it says, love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way. guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
I'd like to close us in prayer. This is a prayer by Reverend Deb Marrow. So you minister with the Religious Coalition of Reproductive Choice, which All Souls has, through our Reproductive Justice Committee, worked with a few times. Dear sister, may I call you that? We don't know one another, but I have walked in your shoes, had some of the same dreams and nightmares. I made a decision. I knew it was right for me. I knew it would be something that would be part of my life story, part of what molded who I was. Little did I know it would change my life. It got better, far better than I could have imagined. Please be kind to yourself and to those around you. Know that after the loss comes a new day and new opportunities to grow and love again. Amen. May peace be with you.